Hello, my beautiful friends. My name is Kim, and I hope you're having a fabulous day. If you are interested in true crime stories like I am, I hope that you consider hitting that subscribe button. But either way, thanks for being here. Today, we're going to be talking about an incredibly brutal loss felt by the Clancy family of Duxbury, Massachusetts. I've talked so many times on my channel about parents who were horrific to their own children, causing injury and also sometimes killing them. If you're not new to the channel, you know for sure we talk way too much about that. While these three small children in the Clancy family were indeed shockingly unalived by their own mom, Lindsay, it's been said that she loved them fiercely. We've heard that she wanted nothing more than to be a good mom, and she succeeded up until the very end. So, what went wrong? Why are we here talking about this horrific loss? Let's find out what happened together. But first, a word from our sponsor. This will not be news to anyone, but I struggle with sleep and deal with stress and anxiety more often than I should. Aura has been a life-changing product for me with conquering these concerns. Aura is a new mindfulness and sleep app that won the Best Apple Award, and it's used by over 7 million people. That's a good sign because it works. Aura is an all-in-one app for your well-being and sleep. They have thousands of meditations, stories, and so much more, like CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, life coaching, breath work, and spirituality. Aura's content is created by hundreds of expert coaches and therapists around the world. I use Aura mainly for meditation sessions in the morning. I set it up for 15 minutes that I do first thing in the morning. This starts my day in a more positive headspace. And in the evening, I listen to the sounds of the ocean. That is extremely relaxing. Sleep, anxiety, stress, gratitude, affirmations, meditation, Aura is the all-in-one app that has worked for me. The variety of the app and the options seem to be endless. If you are new to meditation, they have sessions for beginners, not one size fits all like other apps. There is so much variety and personalization. It knew exactly which guides I'd like, and I can find endless tracks I love. Hundreds of coaches, therapists, and storytellers that my options are endless. It's intelligent and personalized, uses billions of data points to personalize it for you, for me, to make it as effective as it possibly can, in all efforts to improve your sleep and well-being. It's the only app that has worked for me with improving sleep and feeling so much better every day. Get started for completely free. I'll emphasize free on Aura's website using my special link in the description box. And here it is on the screen. The first 500 people, of course, get the free trial plus an exclusive 25% off. You guys get in there early, get your 25% off. The sign up is very easy. Thanks so much to Aura for sponsoring today's video, and thanks to all of you for listening. On January 24th, 2023, just this year, at 6:10 p.m., Patrick Clancy called Plymouth County 911 to report a possible self-harm attempt. When he arrived at his house, the first thing he noticed was the silence. He had 3 small children that played and chattered all day, so the lack of sound was deafening to him. He had been picking up some takeout and some medicine for the kids, but he'd only been gone for 25 minutes. He ran upstairs and found the master bedroom door locked. He got it open pretty quickly. He saw blood on the floor in front of the full-length mirror that they had in there, and the window was open, but nobody was there, no Lindsay. He immediately ran out to the backyard where he found his wife on the ground below an open bedroom window with cuts on her wrist and her neck. She was still alive and not bleeding very much at this time, but she couldn't move. So he called 911. While on the phone with them, Patrick asked Lindsay, "What did you do?" Her response was, "I tried to hurt myself and jump out the window." Then he asked, "Where are the kids?" And Lindsay only said, "The basement." When the first responders arrived, Patrick asked if they would stay with his wife so he could go check on the kids. He was technically still on the phone with 911, where he could be heard screaming as he enters his basement and starts to find his children, 5-year-old Cora and his 3-year-old Dawson, lying on the floor of the den. They had exercise bands around their throats and they were not breathing. The 911 dispatcher could hear Patrick's screams get louder and louder as he found each child. And then he came across 8-month-old Colin laying on the floor of the home office in the same state as his siblings. He immediately screamed for help and started to tried to revive his children. When EMS got to the basement, Patrick said she killed the kids. He clearly meant Lindsay. Cora and Dawson were taken to the closest trauma center. EMS was able to restart Colin's heart, the youngest one, on the scene. So he was sent by air to the Boston's Children's Hospital. Doctors did work on the kiddos, but unfortunately, Cora and Dawson were declared gone on arrival. While working on Colin, the doctors found he had no brain activity, but he was placed on life support until his other family members could get there to the hospital to say their goodbyes, which is completely sad. Lindsay also had severe injuries from jumping out of the second-story window and was taken to South Shore Hospital in Weymouth for evaluation. They found she had multiple breaks to her back and to her ribs, as well as neck trauma. She was transferred to the Brighton and Women's Hospital where they did surgery, but unfortunately one of the breaks to her back severed her spinal cord and she is now paralyzed from the waist down. This is permanent and not something that can be fixed by further surgeries or rehab. She is permanently paralyzed. Colin survived on life support until January 27th, and then he succumbed to his injuries as well. Directly after the kids perished, a friend of the family started a GoFundMe for Patrick for expenses. I mean, he couldn't work, and the funeral expenses alone would be crippling. Immediately, Patrick came forward to say that Lindsay was sick. She had an illness. She said she was struggling with postpartum depression, was on leave from work, and was recently having symptoms of postpartum psychosis. He said that he started working from home to support her while she went to outpatient therapy 5 days a week to treat her postpartum. He said she wanted to go into a treatment program full time, but was declined because of their health insurance. And that is just completely mind-blowing and eye-opening of how bad our insurance system is. To understand any of this, we have to go back to the beginning. Lindsay Marie Musgrove was born on August 11, 1990 in Connecticut to her mom Paula and her dad Mike. She was known by everyone growing up to be a kind and helpful person. When she talked about wanting to be a nurse when she grew up, no one was surprised because it fit her personality. She loved taking care of people. She had an amazing heart. She graduated from Lyman Hall High School and then went on to college, which was a private school in Connecticut. She got her bachelor's degree in nursing and she started working as a nurse. Patrick and Lindsay were married in 2016. Lindsay was a labor and delivery nurse for the Massachusetts General Hospital, which is no small feat. They are a very prestigious hospital. So in 2017, their first child, a daughter named Cora, was born. Cora was a serious and cautious child, always looking out for others, and it's no surprise because she wanted to be a doctor and a mommy when she grew up. Patrick later said that she loved sloths, unicorns, tea parties, going to lunch with Nana and Grandpa, and giving presents to people. She knew everything about princesses, and her favorite being Sophia the First. They bought the house in Duxbury at 47 Summer Lane in 2018 and planned on expanding their family. In 2019, they had their second child, a little boy named Dawson. Dawson was a funny and generous toddler, always willing to share his toys. Patrick said he loved trucks, tractors, dinosaurs, Paw Patrol, worker guys, and being outside. He was adventurous and mischievous and enjoyed causing trouble, which he typically found hilarious. Lindsay was still working at Mass Gen and Patrick was working with Microsoft, so they made a solid living together. When Lindsay had a baby, they both took family medical leave. We will be discussing Lindsay's mental health, but up to this point, she had no issues of depression or any diagnosis related to that. Things changed when she gave birth to her third child, a little boy they named Colin, on May 26, 2022. His birth would go smoothly, described by both as hardly with any fuss, Patrick said. He was just an incredibly happy and vibrant baby, constantly smiling. Because of this, his nickname was Happy Colin. At the time of the tragedy, he was almost 8 months old, so he could sit up on his own and loved his independence. He also loved joining Patrick on his Microsoft work calls, where Colin could be seen and heard playing in the background in his Jumpy. It's like a toddler walker. He had just started saying Dada whenever Patrick walked into the room. Patrick said if he were ever having a bad day, Colin always knew how to heal him. As I said, prior to this, Lindsay had no mental health issues and she was considered healthy. But in the months after Colin's birth, Lindsay started feeling off. She told Patrick that she wasn't connecting with the baby as she was kind of depressed. She was on her family leave from the hospital and not expected to report back quite yet. Because this is about Lindsay's mental health, which would be in her protected medical records, and the case is still very new, there will be a lot that we don't know. But I'll tell you what we do know, which is a little bit. I'm curious to see how this develops, but we'll continue. We do know that the end of September, when Colin was 4 months old, Lindsay let Patrick know that she was having a lot of anxiety about her upcoming return to work. Due to this, Lindsay saw 2 psychiatrists. Unfortunately, we currently don't know why she went to go see them or why she saw 2 different ones. There is endless possibilities why she's seen 2. As soon as Lindsay was out of surgery following the kid's death, we're jumping ahead a little bit, she was placed under arrest in her hospital room and charged with the murders of her children. The Duxbury police chief, Michael Carbone, gave a statement to the press saying that Lindsay was recovering and improving daily. Shortly before her arraignment on February 7, 2023, the DA's office told the press she can move, she is not paralyzed, she can move her legs, she can move her arms, and she can communicate. They also said that Lindsay was in contact with her family and has spoken to her parents. At the arraignment, the defense proved that both the police chief and the DA had lied about Lindsay. She was not recovering and improving daily. That wasn't happening at all. Also, her doctor sent a letter to the judge that the DA also had access to that said that they were complete lies. Lindsay can move her arms and she can communicate. That was the only truth in that statement. She could not move her legs. She was paralyzed and will be for the rest of her life. According to the assistant District Attorney Jennifer, Lindsay was initially diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and prescribed some medication, which we'll get to in a minute. This was brought up during that arraignment on February 7th. Jennifer walked through what the state of Massachusetts believes happened. Then Lindsay's attorney, Kevin Remington, gave Lindsay's side to the judge as much as he could. Lindsay was not available for court. She was only a couple of weeks out from her back surgery, but did appear on Zoom. She was lying prone in the hospital bed, wearing a neck brace and a face mask. Her eyes were visible, but that was truly all you could see of her. There was no emotion during any part of the hearing, and it was a very emotional hearing. Also at the hearing, Jennifer said that the first thing that Lindsay asked when she came to, which means when she woke up from an extensive back surgery, was, "Do I need an attorney?" The assistant DA used this question to point out that when she woke up, she knew something possibly illegal had happened. She didn't have amnesia. She did remember the event. A lot of people that had previously supported her had problems with that question. They thought it showed some sort of guilt. Perhaps it does. What do you guys think? A couple of things to keep in mind are that when Lindsay woke up, she had just undergone surgery, had no family in the room, probably had at least one police officer in her room, and was most likely cuffed to the bed. Remember that she was under arrest when she woke up. That's the other thing. It's possible that she was read her Miranda rights in case she confessed to anything. Before I continue, I want to address GAD, generalized anxiety disorder. There can be a generic component, but anyone at all can have anxiety. Some of the symptoms of GAD are trouble falling asleep, trembling, headaches, irritability, sweating, nausea, fatigue, poor concentration, and the inability to relax. The point is that generalized anxiety disorder as a diagnosis is very general and just refers to a person that is struggling with anxiety. One part of Remington's speech to the judge addressed all of the medications Lindsay had been prescribed. Between October 22 and January 2023, Lindsay was prescribed 13 different medications. Patrick said she was on at least 4 at the time and always took them as directed. However, if she was having some sort of mental break, she might forget that she took the medication and then would take it again. Patrick wasn't monitoring her medications, so he really doesn't know. Some of these meds are scary by themselves. I don't want to scare anyone off. Whatever medication your doctor prescribed, you take it as directed. As always, please consult your doctor before changing or stopping any medications. Here is a list of her medications: Zoloft, Prozac, Trazodone, Seroquel, Lamictal, Ambien, Lorazepam, Klonopin, Valium, and Buspar. In this list, you have 5 different antidepressants, 1 for mood disorders, 3 benzos, 1 for anxiety, and 1 for antipsychotic behavior, the Seroquel. That is a lot of medications to have in and out of your system. Also, as her lawyer pointed out, Prozac does come with a black box warning that it may cause extreme suicidal and homicidal thoughts. A black box warning is the side effect warning that comes with the medication when it is very severe adverse reaction. The one thing that was discussed the most was that Lindsay was prescribed Seroquel, and she had a few side effects from it. She told the doctor it made her feel like she was underwater all the time, like a zombie. So the doctor took her off of it and added 4 more medications. The next visit, the Seroquel was added back into what she was supposed to take. Now you tell me, if the only thing wrong with Lindsay was anxiety, what is the reason for all the antidepressants? or the use of strong antipsychotics. According to her lawyer, he believes that on top of the postpartum depression and possibly postpartum psychosis, which I'll cover in a bit, Lindsay was incredibly over medicated. Because Lindsay was seeing a psychiatrist and taking all these medications, she was journaling. I don't know if you've ever gone to therapy, but it's often recommended that you journal, and I find it to be very therapeutic. So they want to, part of the journaling is to get some feelings out, but also to document, like, how are you sleeping, how are you feeling, how are you eating, happy, etc. So Lindsay was doing exactly that. She was keeping detailed notes about her daily activities, her mental state, and her medication use and the side effects. One specific note to herself was read into record for the judge by the DA, the assistant DA, Jennifer, because she thought it made Lindsay look bad. This was a note Lindsay made on October 25th, 2022. I think I sort of resent my other children because they prevent me from treating Cal like my first baby. And I know it's not fair to them. I know that. I was feeling so depressed last evening when Cora and Dawson came home from school. I know it runs off on them. So we had a pretty rough evening. I want to feel love and connections with all my kids. Jennifer used this to supposedly show that Lindsay was awful for obviously making a note of something very private to her. On December 20th, 2022, Lindsay was evaluated at the Women and Infants Hospital Center for Women's Behavioral Health in Providence. She had again gone to Patrick and told him that she didn't feel right and needed help. Patrick believed her every time, and he tried every time. The psychiatrist there told her she does not have postpartum depression and she has no symptoms of either. The last part is according to Jennifer because, yes, you guessed it, she read it to the judge as well. You may be wondering why. She thinks there was nothing wrong with Lindsay and that she just didn't want to be a mom anymore. By this time, though, Patrick had started working from home because he does believe his wife. He does believe there was something wrong with her, so he stopped going into the office, work from home, so he could help her with the kids and everything. He's there to give her extra help, basically. Lindsay also took a leave of absence from her job at Mass Gen, the job she worked so hard to get and loved. At some point in December, Lindsay asked her doctors to take her off the benzos she was on because she was concerned about addiction. She continued with the medication switches constantly. One thing about postpartum depression that makes it so hard to treat is that moms have to try one medication after another to see what works for them. In the meantime, their hormones are off kilter. They're getting less sleep than they ever have, and they're doing the most important job they'll ever have by being a mother. By the end of December, Lindsay told Patrick she was having thoughts of hurting herself and thoughts of hurting her children. After the deaths, Patrick shared this information with the investigators. Because of this, Lindsay had herself admitted to McLean Hospital in Belmont. This was a psychiatric hospital and she was kept for mental health care. On January 5th, the psychiatric hospital discharged her without any indication to Patrick or even Lindsay herself that she was a danger to herself or to others. Lindsay was determined to get help, so she started going to outpatient therapy 5 times a week. I want to stress that because that is a huge commitment to go daily. She was there 8 hours. This was her full-time job, to take care of herself so she could take care of her kids. She wanted to be inpatient though, and the hospital wanted that as well, but Lindsay's insurance would not cover that. Some of those treatment centers charge up to $1,300 a day for inpatient, so that would have been like $30,000 for the month of January. This family, the Clancy family, did not have that kind of money. So Patrick started working from home to try to help Lindsay so she could at least go to this daily treatment. Around the middle of January, at some point, Patrick asked Lindsay if she was still having thoughts of unaliving herself, and she said no. A week before the incident, Patrick spoke to the psychiatrist during a visit and said, Please help her. You're turning her into a zombie. The day of the tragedy, Lindsay started out that morning taking Cora to a doctor's appointment. It was just a checkup. Cora was healthy, and the office staff did not notice anything off about Lindsay. They said she was quiet, how she'd been the last few times or the last months that she's come into the office. After getting home, Lindsay took Cora and Dawson outside to play in the snow. She took pictures of the snowman they built and that they had sent to her mom and Patrick. At 4:02 p.m., she did a search on her phone for kids' Miralax, which is a stool softener that had been recommended by the pediatrician that morning. At 4:13, she used her phone to search for the restaurant 3V in a nearby town of Plymouth. After finding one nearby, she used Apple Maps on her phone to see how close the restaurant was to their home in Duxbury. According to Google Maps, it was 5.2 miles in approximately 11 minutes from the Clancy house to 3V. Put a pin in that for later. She went on to CVS at 4:47 and then called her local CVS down the road. She didn't look this one up, but I did, and it was about 2.3 miles and approximately 5 minutes away. Lindsay didn't need to look up that pharmacy because this was her regular, it was their pharmacy. On the phone call, she did call them though, and she spoke to the CVS manager to see if they had the kids' Miralax in stock. He said that he did not, but he carried a generic. The man was interviewed later and said that Lindsay sounded fine. She was able to intelligently have a conversation about substituting to a generic. At 4:53, she texts Patrick, who was working in his downstairs office. She asked, "Any chance you want to get takeout from 3V? I didn't cook anything. It's been a long day." At the arraignment, the DA pointed out that the request to get dinner from that specific restaurant was unusual. They usually did take out closer to home, but said that they'd been to this restaurant before. She was trying to say that Lindsay picked a restaurant that Patrick had to go to that was a little bit further away. And she checked it out of how far it was, so she would have enough time alone with the kids. To back up a bit, that would be 11-minute drive for dinner and then the stop at CVS. Patrick replied yes to the request and to go pick up this 3V restaurant and to stop by CVS. At 5:06 p.m., Patrick texts Lindsay asking what she was going to get for dinner. Her reply was the Mediterranean Power Bowl. So he told her he wanted the scallop and pork belly risotto. At 5:10, Lindsay called the restaurant to place the order, and the staff there said that there was no problems with that at all. I'm sorry to keep repeating that, but Jennifer thought it was important that the judge knew every person Lindsay talked to and who said that she seemed fine. At 5:15, Patrick left to run for his errands, saying later it seemed like any other time he would just run out and get things. As he was leaving, Lindsay texted to remind him to pick up the kids' Miralax. At 5:32, Patrick was seen on surveillance footage at the CVS, and he was picking up this medication, this Miralax. Then at 5:33, Patrick called Lindsay from the children's medication aisle inside the store. Lindsay did not answer at first, but she called him back 1 minute later. The call only lasted 14 seconds, and Lindsay helped Patrick verify he was getting the correct medicine for the kids. When asked later, Patrick said Lindsay seemed fine on the phone, although she seemed to be in the middle of something. Then at 5:37 p.m., he was seen making the purchase and leaving CVS. Patrick is next seen on their surveillance footage from the cameras at the restaurant. He picks up dinner and is out of there in under a minute. As we know, he arrives home at 6:09 to find his family destroyed. He has said to anybody that would listen afterwards that Lindsay was having, quote, her best day. As a side note, at no time was Patrick, Lindsay, or her family ever told not to leave the kids alone with her. Lindsay spent time alone with them all the time. Her parents had been involved in her mental care as well, and they would back up Patrick with these same statements. At the arraignment, the DA argued that Lindsay should be given no bail and moved to a hospital ward of the county jail. Remington argued that Lindsay requires more treatment and at the time at the rehab so she could learn how to live as a paraplegic. Prior to the arraignment, her attorney, Remington, had asked for a forensic psychologist to evaluate Lindsay and talk about her current issues and how they could help her and in prepare for trial. The judge did allow that, and Dr. Paul Zuzlo did see Lindsay at least twice. The last documented conversation we have with Lindsay and her husband was on February 6th. She was able to reach Patrick and talk because it was radio silence. They wouldn't let him call him anything. She told him that after he left the house, she killed the kids because she heard a voice and had a moment of psychosis. She said she heard a man's voice saying she should kill her kids because it was her last chance. The DA added that Patrick said Lindsay had never used the term psychosis or talked about hearing voices prior to meeting the forensic psychiatrist. Considering they had all agreed Lindsay couldn't physically go anywhere yet, the judge decided not to set bail amount. Instead, he ordered her to stay in the current hospital she was in while being treated. When released, she will be allowed to go to a rehabilitation center, which is a 24/7 rehab. After that, the order was that she be released to home confinement with GPS monitoring, and she was ordered to continue mental health treatment. The most recent news is that on May 5th, 2023, she was going to be released to go home. However, her attorney requested, though, through the court, that she be committed to a different hospital, which is a mental health facility. This was a judicial commitment, so she couldn't just walk out. Well, she couldn't just leave on her own. But Lindsay agreed with the request, and so did the DA. Lindsay was committed for 6 months to begin with, but that will probably be continued. But both the attorneys finally agree on something, that she should be there, and she's still sick and she needs more time. Originally, Lindsay was charged with 2 counts of murder and 3 counts of suffocation or strangulation and 3 counts of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. The charges have not been changed at this time. This case really is a brain tease. A part of me is thinking, is this premeditated by picking the restaurant that was further away and then the errand to pick up the medication? The fact that she sounded normal when she was talking to her husband when he called from the pharmacy, but seemed like she was preoccupied doing something. Was it something bad? And I don't know. Either way, it's a very sad story. Poor Patrick's loss is something I could not imagine. Let's leave a red heart in the comments for Patrick and his surviving family that deeply miss those kiddos. Thanks to all my channel members and Patreons who continue to support me. If you would like early access to new videos or decide the cases I cover next, you can do so by clicking the join button from your desktop. Well, if you have made it to the end, you are rock stars, and I love you to death. There are more true crime videos in my Crimey Cases playlist if you'd like to check them out. Stay safe, my loves, and remember, if you see something, say something. And I'll leave the postpartum phone number somewhere on the screen for you if you feel that you need it or a loved one needs it. Thanks, guys. Bye.